From Washington, D.C., this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Hannah Zubairi. First, the headlines. Al Sharpton blasts Rittenhouse, says teen went to Kenosha to confront protesters. U.S. House members introduce bill for Afghan War Commission. Islamic Center vandalized in northeast Minneapolis. What's a Navy bean pie? Learn the culinary history of this black Muslim dish. World market for halal products reaches $7 trillion. Our top story tonight. Days after Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted of all charges, Reverend Al Sharpton said he's very concerned the verdict will lead people to kill attendees at his rallies. Sharpton, a minister, civil rights activist, and politician, talked about the jury's verdict on MSNBC's The Sunday Show with Jonathan Caphart. He said Rittenhouse showed up in Kenosha, Wisconsin in August 2020 to confront protesters, not protect property as he claimed in court. The protests were against the police shooting of a 29-year-old black man, Jacob Blake, who was shot in the back 7 times. U.S. Congressman Peter Meijer and Andy Kim have introduced legislation to create a nonpartisan independent commission to assess lessons learned from the 20-year war in Afghanistan. The Afghanistan War Commission Act of 2021 aims to make the results public in an unclassified report. Kim said the commission is essential to the future safety and security of our country. The panel will probe the affairs of all U.S. government agencies active in Afghanistan. That includes the Departments of Defense, State, the CIA, and NATO. U.S. Senator Tammy Duckworth introduced the companion bill in the Senate. Both measures have bipartisan support. Kurdish-led forces overseeing jails in northeast Syria housing about 10,000 men with alleged ties to Daesh are releasing prisoners in exchange for money. That's under a reconciliation scheme according to an official document and interviews with 2 freed men. Syrian men detained without trial can pay $8,000 fine to be freed, a copy of the release form shows. Released prisoners sign a declaration promising not to rejoin any armed groups. They also agreed to leave parts of northeast Syria under Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces control. Upon their release, 2 men The Guardian met were reunited with their wives and children. Both had fought with Daesh until the group's rule had collapsed in March 2019. Their families had also been freed from Al-Hawal detention camp under the deal. The Dar al-Qalam Cultural Center in northeast Minneapolis was vandalized Sunday morning. Security cameras were ripped off the wall at around 2:40 a.m. The mosque's security camera footage shows a man removing the cameras and smashing them. He was there 5 minutes before fleeing. Abdul Fattah Abdi, the mosque's executive director, said he believes the vandal is the same person who broke into several cars at the center about a week ago. Abdi said earlier this month someone broke into his car there and then went to his home. Anyone with information about the vandalism is being asked to call the Minneapolis Police Department. Oakland local Zakia Shahid Muhammad grew up eating sweet Navy bean pies, often from fellow mosque-goers who sold the sweet after prayers. When in-person services ceased due to the pandemic, Zakia began experimenting with making bean pies. After a couple of weeks and rave reviews from family and friends, her business Baby Bean Pie was officially born in September 2020. Bean pie is usually made with warming spices, sugar, eggs, and milk. Bean pies, specifically Navy bean pies, hold special meaning for members of the Nation of Islam. Group members follow a pork-free diet that limits refined carbohydrates and encourages healthful eating. The U.S. National Security Advisor affirmed Washington's commitment to the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Bosnia and Herzegovina on Monday. Jake Sullivan underscored the United States' strong support for High Representative Christian Smich and his mandate to oversee civilian implementation of the Dayton Peace Accords. That 1995 agreement was reached by the presidents of Bosnia, Croatia, and Serbia. It ended a bloody 3-year-old civil war and outlined a general framework agreement for peace in Bosnia and Herzegovina. National Security Council spokesperson Emily Horn said Sullivan and Schmidt emphasized their shared commitment to the countries. They also discussed the importance of functioning institutions to deliver services, ensure stability and the rule of law, and provide the basis for peace and economic opportunity. They agreed on the need to counter corruption while supporting civil society. 2 longtime Fox News commentators have resigned in protest of what they call a pattern of incendiary and fabricated claims by the network's opinion hosts. In separate interviews with NPR, Stephen Hayes and Jonah Goldberg pointed to a breaking point this month. This came with network star Tucker Carlson's 3-part series on the January 6th siege of the U.S. Capitol. The series relies on fabrications and conspiracy theories to exonerate former President Donald Trump's supporters who participated in the attack. Hayes, who has been a close friend of Fox News political anchor Bret Baier since their college days at DePaul University. He and Goldberg were mainstays of Baier's special report after joining the network in 2009. Together, Hayes and Goldberg co-founded the conservative news site, The Dispatch. Israel's foreign ministry earlier this week stole a photograph of a religious Jewish woman and a Muslim woman taken in the United States. It was part of a social media effort to hail the importance of coexistence and tolerance. The photograph was shared on the foreign ministry's Arabic language Twitter account, but it was used without the permission of the Jewish photographer who appeared in the photograph and from the Muslim woman featured in it. The foreign ministry also did not inform the subjects that their images would be shared by Israel to nearly 500,000 followers of the account. The worldwide market for halal products has reached $7 trillion, the head of the World Halal Union said on Thursday. Ahmed Galir told Anadolu agency that as world trade develops and the number of manufacturers entering the market increases, demand for halal certificates is also increasing. He said work on international halal standards started in the 2000s and accelerated as Turkey got involved. Turkey spearheaded the establishment of the Standards and Metrology Institute of Islamic Countries in Istanbul, he added. About 1.8 billion Muslims in 57 Islamic countries and other parts of the world seek halal certification information on what they produce and consume. A federal judge took a shot at former President Donald Trump Monday for lying about voter fraud during the 2020 presidential election. Senior District Judge Reggie Walton said former Vice President Al Gore had a better standing to challenge the 2000 election results. But he was a man and walked away, he said, of Gore's decision to end his presidential bid following weeks of legal battles. Walton's comments came during a plea hearing for Capitol riot defendant Adam Johnson. Johnson was photographed carrying House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's lectern through the Capitol building. He pleaded guilty Monday to a lesser charge of entering and remaining in a restricted building or grounds. The U.S. government's chief medical advisor, Dr. Anthony Fauci, warned Sunday that time is running short to prevent a dangerous new surge of COVID-19 infections. Coronavirus cases nationwide are rising again for the first time in weeks, approaching 100,000 per day. Experts fear that the Thanksgiving holiday, during which tens of millions of Americans will travel to celebrate with family and friends, will fuel a surge. Giving machines will begin doling out donations of blankets, boots, and basketballs, amongst other items, starting next Tuesday. That's Giving Tuesday, an effort launched and co-funded by the UN in 2012 to encourage global giving post-Thanksgiving. Giving machines are vending machines that allow passerbys in some American cities to make charitable donations to those in need locally or globally. When donors make a purchase with a credit card, the giving machine dispenses a postcard featuring an image and description of their donation. 10 U.S. cities have the machines, with one to be located at Rockefeller Center in New York City. The kickoff includes speeches from representatives of UNICEF, WaterAid, the UNHCR, CARE, the Mariano Rivera Foundation, and other charities. The first giving machine opened in 2017 in Salt Lake City, Utah. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment on the $7 trillion halal goods market. So stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Despite the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, millions around the world will not have access. We need a vaccine that's free and available to everyone, everywhere. It's time for a people's vaccine.
I am what hunger looks like in America. I am an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for the last day of school. Because this may be the last time I'll have lunch. Till September.
I am a single father of 2 who works 3 part-time jobs, and that's still not enough to put food on the table.
I was created by artificial intelligence from faces of the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger.
Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back. To discuss the worldwide market for halal products and its potential, let's go to Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid. Over to you, Imam Mujahid.
Thank you, Hina. World Halal Union says that halal market has reached $7 trillion. Wow, that's good money. I wonder how they came up to this and who is benefiting from that $7 trillion. And we have with us Shahid Amanullah to discuss that with us. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
So Shahid, so 1 trillion for you, or who is making this? Shahid Amanullah is co-founder of Zakatify and Zabiha.com, very popular website. So tell us, where are you keeping those trillions?
Well, you have to take this with a grain of halal salt. The problem is that, Muslims eat no matter what, and Muslims are not eating any less or more than they used to. The difference is that what they've eaten in the past is now being packaged as halal, and its halal qualities have been emphasized. This means two different things. In Muslim majority markets, it simply means that the things that they were eating, there's a little bit more emphasis on its halal nature and a little bit more accountability. Otherwise, it's the same thing that they purchased before. And in the West, it means that Muslims are moving toward actively consuming halal products, whereas before they were either consuming non-halal products or finding other ways to do that outside of what would be a halal marketplace. So really what it is, it's more of a measure of Muslim purchasing power when it comes to products that could be designated as halal. And the good news about it is that we are finally quantifying it as a coherent market. The next step, of course, would be to further define what does halal mean in terms of values and quality, and trying to make sure that there's accountability in that market.
So Turkey is doing this week a big halal summit, World Halal Summit or something like that. Are there other summits going around? Other countries are seeing that it's a market which they can use for export purposes?
Absolutely. There have been halal market conferences as far back as I can remember. I think the first ones that I was going to were in 2006, 2007. And back then, a lot of the halal market conferences were being held in Southeast Asia, places like Brunei and Kuala Lumpur. And then as the market started to grow, you started getting more activity in places like Dubai and Istanbul and Saudi Arabia, as they started realizing that there is this global market. You have to understand, in some places where you have nothing but a Muslim population, it's hard to conceive of it as a halal marketplace. For you, it's just a market. But when you're in a pluralist society, like, for example, Malaysia or the United States or Canada or the UK, then there's a little bit more emphasis on a halal market because it's juxtapositioned against the normal market or the market for everybody else. And what's been really interesting about kind of the halal revolution, as I've seen it in the last 20 years, is that the cultivation of the idea of a halal market really came outside of Muslim majority countries and found its way back in, where it's revitalized halal as a set of values for populations that are almost exclusively Muslim. So it's been really a wonderful kind of cross-pollination between Muslim diaspora communities and Muslim majority countries.
Shahid, you're well aware of the fact that there was a lot of Islamophobic conversation on halal and haram, and mostly on halal in the United States and somewhat in Canada. I don't know, how far did it go?
In different parts of the world, it's gone quite far. If you look in certain countries in Europe, there's an active attempt to ban halal slaughter, even if it means banning kosher slaughter at the same time, by groups of people that frankly are overtly Islamophobic and are trying to use it to penalize their Muslim populations. So halal has become like a bad word in some of these countries, and I'm thinking of Denmark and Belgium and some of these countries. But when you look at North America, for example, we haven't crossed that threshold here. Halal is not a bad word in the mainstream lexicon in North America. That's why you can have a chain called the Halal Guys open up hundreds of outlets in North America, and no one really complains about it. Or you can have halal products being sold in Whole Foods and other places, and there's very little outcry. In the UK and other places, when people find out that, for example, KFC in the UK is selling halal chicken, it raises a public outcry from people, from Islamophobic members of that society. And I think in those countries, it's going to take a while to pull it back. But I think we managed to avoid that in North America. And now that it's been established in North America, I don't see really that happening anytime soon, because halal has proven itself in North America as such cash cow, frankly, for certain industries, is that we'll have a lot of allies among us pushing back against Islamophobia when it comes to halal food.
You know, if it's a $7 trillion market or something like that, close to it, how much of that, United States is controlling? And what is the American interest in halal market? Can we export to these countries? Can we benefit from this market?
Well, the U.S. is a key exporter of halal products to the rest of the world. We have, of course, a very vibrant agricultural ecosystem, and that halal exports have been a part of it for decades now. The U.S. government actively regulates and approves and encourages this export. So we do have a big chunk of that $7 trillion. Now, of course, you have you've got very large ecosystems in Australia and New Zealand, in Brazil, and other countries that are heavy meat exporting countries that are joining the fray. And what's really interesting about it is that as you have countries that are starting to ban halal slaughter in Europe, for example, what that does is it creates a demand for the importation of halal products, which is only going to benefit those exporting countries like the US.
It is essentially counterproductive for those European countries who have banned halal and kosher slaughter. So it is counterproductive, but probably in the movement of hate and Islamophobia, losing money seems to be okay. But what about China? I mean, China in 70s and 80s used to export halal product. I have seen on the street in general places Arabic written on different package goods and things like that. Are they foregoing that, or they are benefiting while they're doing their dirty job on Uyghur Muslims?
No, I think that's a really good question. And there's very rarely a market that China can participate in that it doesn't put its all into. I think the halal marketplace is no different. But I think what they're running into is a credibility issue in the global halal marketplace. Not necessarily because of the Uyghur issue. I actually wish that were the case, but because the quality, one of the trademarks of the halal space is that people are attaching quality measurements to what they get at a consumer level as well as a business level. And so when they get halal products from Australia, New Zealand, or from the US for Brazil, it's attached to the sense of quality that's coming from them. I don't think that halal exports from China are afforded that same opportunity because China has not been a major player in that space for quite a while, and it's going to take a while for them to catch up at the quality level, and then they're going to have to fight this perception that they already have among mainstream Muslim populations that China's really not being a good actor when it comes to their own Muslim population, and so therefore why should we support it with our purchases?
Would you say, Shahid, that Australia and New Zealand might be the leading provider and exporter of halal meats?
Not necessarily in terms of quantity. I think that mantle still goes to Brazil. But in terms of the framework around halal exports, nearly 100% of lamb of lamb exports from Australia and New Zealand are halal. And there's a very strict government program to regulate it, to make sure that the people who are buying it can be assured that it's kind of met every sort of mainstream standard for halal. And this, by the way, is happening even at the same time that there's a very sophisticated anti-halal movement happening in Australia at the consumer level. So at the same time, you have a country that is exporting a lot of halal meat and very high quality meat to the rest of the world, including here in the US. But you also have a grassroots movement that's really upset that that's happening, even though Australians are making money off of this. So it's a very weird situation to see a profit on one side, Islamophobia on the other side. And at some point, there's just a group of people out there that hate Muslims more than they love money. But I don't see that lasting for very long because, as you mentioned, it's a $7 trillion market. And at some point, money can be a great solvent of racism. If somebody can make money off of a Muslim, they're not going to hate them. And so I see that's going to happen in Australia and New Zealand, and I see it's going to happen in North America as well.
Hey, Shahid, are you going to have some halal turkey on your table this Thanksgiving?
This is a great story, and it's a great story of Muslims in America. When I was a child, the idea of getting a halal turkey was almost impossible, and I would have to drive with my family, 20 miles to get halal meat. From where I'm living, just outside Washington, D.C., I can walk to 3 halal markets that can all sell me a halal turkey. And I have a wonderful halal turkey waiting for me just a few blocks away for me to pick up tomorrow. And that has just shown you how much in 20 years we've just changed the landscape of this country. And it's not just a reflection of the availability of halal meat. The fact that you have thousands and thousands of halal turkeys on Thanksgiving, it's an indication of how Muslims have integrated into America and have adopted one of its most popular holidays as their own and have given it their own halal twist.
Well, happy Thanksgiving, Shahid Amanullah, and thank you for your time.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for having me.
Back to you, Hina.
Thank you so much, Imam Mujahid. That's all from our Washington studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube and Facebook. We hope your family and friends have a safe holiday. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.